Senzeni na Tina Senzeni na Tina Senzeni na
on the question of corporate rights. What I think was left from that, from what she said, is the matter of entitlement. And I think that ties back into the thing of black bodies cannot feel. Why is it that whenever a black person says they want something or they deserve something, why can we call it entitlement? When a white person does something mediocre, we will celebrate that. And we will not say they are entitled if they beg for someone to celebrate that achievement. If they go and celebrate their graduation and have a party at the most expensive hotel, and you come and celebrate your graduation as a black person, why are you celebrating this thing? Why is it that, again, why can we not feel, and why every time when you feel it has to be labeled as something? When you get angry at a situation, and you've identified why you're angry, why are you angry? Why do you raise your voice? Why do you have to pander to other people's feelings? Why are we not allowed to live? And I think the only way we really can have a full experience as black people living in our own body is we need to feel. If in the situation of Professor Pula, this lady is making you feel mad, I'm not going to calm down just because she's shaking. I'm also going to shake.
You gotta shake. No, you don't.
This is partly the reason I get because in as much as I try to confront, I try to challenge. Yes, okay, no, you can't wear a suit. Oh, okay, I'm going to come in a suit. It's still, there's so much microaggression that they will make you feel miserable. So you leave for your own well, for your own health. And that's the thing. We need to have spaces where we as black people acknowledge that I can feel, I must feel, and I must challenge. Because you know what, in as much as there has been years of you trying to make me inferior, I acknowledge that I am not inferior. Because the law will not change. Because the law was made by the very same people who think will change the law.
That we know we are a hurting people, we know we need therapy. There is none of it in our schools, there is none of it in the workplace. So it is probably time for us to self-reflect, to stop taking the drugs that are fed to us, to continue to enslave us, to
Sure.
So how do we, number one, get our own black brothers to be that defensive for us? Because right now, we are in a situation where we can't even jog in the morning with our iPhones because they will snatch them and beat you up and take your sneakers and rape you just for cherry on top. Just a quick to my sister in the boardroom and the expectation of you making tea. The problem, know thyself. We are far too apologetic in our agenda as women, but also as black people. You see, so the reason when you are there, and just in your demeanor, you are very apologetic. That is why somebody will ask, go make tea. When I walk into my boardroom that is male-dominated, they ask, how are you taking your cappuccino today?
Yes! 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 Yes!
epitome of racism, but anyway. So basically, I'm questioning the education system and where you, as activists and as psychologists, stand when it comes to education. Because seeing from my views around me, I look at the 8-year-olds who start at the junior school of St. John's, and they put on the so-called black accents where they make jokes with black people standing behind them. So how are black people meant to feel about that when your white friend, as an 8-year-old, was already making a joke? That's pretty much just making fun of you. And then it leads up to the old society and the college society, where they have a POC forum, a people of colors forum, and there are only 20 people in the whole of 600 people to pitch. So what difference is that making if students are aiming to strive to change things and no one's willing to do anything about it? So do you as activists and psychologists talk to schools? What do you do to change that situation?
Gotcha, girl.
Cats.
I'm a founder, director, and an author. You see, I've learned to actually write extensive, voluminous work and reduce it to a small piece. And in fact, I'm going to be brief, maybe less than 90 seconds. That's the minutes. I've prepared for more than 30 minutes, but I'm going to express it. In fact, I don't hear everybody talking about the men on the walls, their vision, reading their vision. They lived for a reconciled South Africa. Yes, research must be encouraged. This topic is an emotional topic. Research must be encouraged to keep on expressing ideas and stimulating ideas of expression. Yes, there is more howling than that coming up with a conciliatory tone. Yes, we shouldn't suppress any form of expression. The narrative, the conversation should continue. And it should be referred to continue. But let us not get stuck in the preoccupation about color. There are so many myriads of things to focus on. But let color not get stuck for the progress of the country. There are so many other things to do. Let color be one of these. And let us go forth. Let us move on. Thank you.
My name is Kato Fosi. I'm a lawyer by profession. I wanted to just bring to the conversation or even ask you, I don't know if you thought about that in South Africa, in the South African context, we've been liberated in 1994, but as a society or even as the government, have they even begun to talk about the residue that apartheid has left on us, the apartheid has left on our parents, the residue that apartheid has left on our grandparents. I could just say I saw this, yes, growing up here in South Africa, but bringing home white friends and having white friends and going over to sleep over at white friends, and you could say the fear in my parents' eyes or in my parents' tone, the fear in my grandparents or grandfather's tone that, oh, you've actually got white friends and you're going to go sleep over at their home and you friends with them. I think the whole, yes, we're in democracy, TRC, let's forgive, but I think there's a lot of work and conversations that need to be done as a country because there are so many things that are unsaid, and I think the other speaker said it well, where you sit by yourself but nobody's pricking you, but you're still feeling the pain.
Yes,
So I
that's
think
nice.
even after 94, there is still a lot of pain.
Yes. Yes. Sure.
When I grew up, my father always taught me to fight for what I believe in, to always stand up for myself. And I'm very touched because I'm finding myself having to stand up for my education, standing up at a corporate environment. But will there ever be a time where I don't need to fight anymore, where I'm treated fairly, not because I'm black, I'm treated fairly just because I'm human?
We all want to be human. Don't you want to be human? Yes.
So my question is, why do black people feel as if white people should always get the good things in life? We as
What?
black people feel as if white
Just slow down, just ask that question again.
My question is, why do black people feel as if white people should always get the good things in life?
Get the good things in life. Get the good things in life.
People feel as if white people are superior. Even in schools, we are being trained to work for other people, specifically the big white companies.
Sure. Wait. She's so busy.
Why are we not taught to be leaders? Why do we always have to follow what we are being told that we even fail to voice out our opinions?
Sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't see what she was saying. My name is Adibaya, and I'm sorry I came late. I don't know if this question I want to ask has already been covered. But the thing is, in South Africa, there is that powerful intergenerational divide. The older generation, they have a different take on what reconciliation should be and issues around forgiveness, and the younger generation also have a completely different take. So what specific ways can this gap, this divide be undone?
Thank you. I'm going to close it right there. I don't know about you, but I need to get home.
Yeah.
Okay?
There's planes to
I'm
get.
going to-
There's planes.
Oh, he paid you. He's got.
Yeah.
No.
He's dying.
He's basically dying.
You are out of order. No, you truly are. This is a discussion from 3 till 5. Hold on. There's nothing worse for a moderator than having to police people's feelings and tones and your desire to speak. So can we all just be mutually respectful of the inherent limitation of this kind of event? I want to know what this guy has to say,
move on. Let us not fetishize blackness. Then
Wow, and I'm still triggered in the content of the remark. Okay,
Don't be like that.
I'm going to give my panel members 2 minutes each. This time I'm going to start with you, Loveland, and I'm going to ask you this time to please stick to the 2 minutes.
Okay. I think it's back on. It's back on. Yes. No. Okay. Thank you. Oh, all these mics. Okay. Can you hear me? Yes? I want to use the example of a RDP house to interrogate or to respond to Katlejo's question, and even to respond to, there was someone who asked the question again about color and all of us, we're all human, all of that. So I think after 1994, and the new government decided to build houses and provide housing to black people who did not have housing. I found it, later, because I wasn't always woke, so now you become woke and then you start asking questions. And there's something for me when we talk about housing that is always interesting, because RDP houses make sense for black people. It's this small matchbox-sized accommodation that says this is the kind of housing that is appropriate for black people and black families, right? So a glorified shack, that's what an RDP house is. And yet when we talk about housing and accommodation in the suburbs, which are typically white, we are talking about space to run around, we're talking about trees, green grass, like generally very comfortable environment. And the reason I'm giving this example is because I think that when people ask the question again about all lives, why are we fixated on color, why are we only talking about black people, etc., I think it's because it's important for us to articulate what is it that can help us explain the majority of this picture, right? So in social sciences and statistics, there's this concept of statistical significance, right? There is never any one thing that can fully explain something, right? But there will always be one or two variables that can help you explain the majority of the picture. And I think this is the point of having a conversation about the black body, is to say that in the South African context, but very much in most post-white settler colonial states, race is the largest explainer, right, for the social situation in this context. Tomorrow we'll talk about something else, right? Over time, hopefully, as black people aren't poor, as we start to undo representation and stereotypes and where black people are and what black people can and can't do, as we start to undo that, maybe 40, 50, 60, 100 years from now, we'll maybe have a different conversation where race is not the only explanation for why society is the way that it is, right? And so I think we've got to approach these kinds of conversations with an extreme amount of humility, but also a huge amount of realism. I think it was I can't remember the organization, but they released a report a while ago, in 2017, and they said something I've been saying forever, but nobody listens until a Harvard or MIT releases the report. And basically what they were looking at was, what would it take for black people today to catch up to where white people are today? 200 years.
228 years.
228 years. So don't tell me we must talk about other things. We can, we should. But the broadest component of the explanation is about race. And until we address race, I'm done.
I am terribly, terribly sorry, because these questions and comments are fantastic. So I'm going to pick quickly three, but let me start with this because the answer is short. I do not think any of us, I certainly am not doing that, I am not fetishizing blackness. This is not a fetishization of blackness. What we are trying is to extricate ourselves from the colonial difference that creates blackness as a body, as underneath. That's the point. Of course, three people, Tambo, Biko, and Fanon, almost say the same thing. Fanon ends his book by saying, "Oh, my body, make me a man who questions." Fanon And Biko says black people will give a human face to civilization.
Yes.
Tambo, you have referred. And black people are struggling precisely for this point. Now, this question of black men and women, of course, this is the question I live with every day, every single day of my life, literally. And here's the question I keep on asking lately. There's a number of questions. I'm saying, because I agree with you, and I like this phrase, these 2 words you use in all of that, black brothers. That phrase is an amazing phrase, because in one moment it's an injunction, it's a reprimand, it's an embrace. It says, you are hurting me, but you're my brother at the same time. Now I ask this, why do black women, in a place like this, where every day you hear black men hurting black women, why do black women love black men? And I say this, I ask Mrs. Mbeki, I ask black men, and the answer I get is fantastic. But the question is this, it's the same question. It says, why do black women love me when I'm not loving them as they should be loved? Why don't I care for them? Why do we not care for them in the way they should be cared for? But of course it goes back to what we're saying here. And we have to create those spaces. And because I ran away from teaching about 17 years ago quickly, but I'm back there. There is nothing I enjoy in my life right now than sitting with my students every day, talking about masculinity, whiteness, about material deprivation, about all kinds of topics. And in that moment, I'm not just teaching, I'm learning so much to see and to see again and to see the world from here. Because, so to answer your question, the direct question, why do black people white people should have good things in life? Why are we not taught to be leaders? And in that moment, this is precisely what I'm doing, that I want to teach both white students and black students the beauty of blackness. That black people, and because 3 years ago, just as an injunction, I'm learning about how to supervise a PhD of a white woman who was raped by a black man. It's the most difficult thing I'm learning through. And in that moment, I know what she's learning. She's saying, and I have to stop her sometimes when she says, but I know precisely that this rape, because it is a stranger rape, is given more weight. And when she's studying, she realizes how many white women who come to her who have been raped, but they don't even realize it's rape because they've been raped by intimates, by white men. So they might call it coercive sex, non-consensual sex, when it is rape. But precisely because of this figure of the black man, then that moment is rape. So we have to work and work and work, both with black women, particularly with black women and men, to love ourselves, this decolonial love. And it is hard work, but also it's a liberating work.
We also have to, thank you for finding, we also have to work on feelings, because at the bottom of all of these tensions and conflicts are feelings. I supervise 4 students who are doing theses on racial microaggression, racism in sports, dialogue between black and white women, and all of these students come with one experience, or with one major experience, which is that racism is here to stay. Racism is here to stay, and so we need other ways of confronting it. And one way, one of my students is doing the research on dialogue between black and white. And that dialogue is about facing these issues, facing the shame, because at the heart of the denial and the repudiation of racism is the shame felt by white people for this history that goes way back. The shame of confronting that and accepting it, admitting how it affects them, and the distancing from that shame. And so the dialogues, the face-to-face dialogues, the engagement with this issue brings up the possibility of actually opening up, even to say, I feel ashamed. Often this is so shaming and so embarrassing that this is the reason you are not moving forward, because that is being denied. One of the things that has to be acknowledged is the fact that it is shaming white, this whole history shames white people. I want to tell a very short story, if you don't mind, Namta. Namta is my friend. Her son died. Can I say how he died? It committed suicide. It was a very bright, the same day as Mongani Mayosi. At his funeral, there were black boys and white boys. And what was most moving, and I mean moving in the sense of the word, not wishy-washy moving, but really moving, is to witness the possibility of love across the color line.
Sure.
White boys weeping inconsolably, and I mean throughout, because of the friendship that was there between them and the black boys and Namhla's son. But here is the thing. It doesn't mean that because Vivani was friends with white boys, he was not confronting this. Just a few weeks before he left school, he gave a rousing talk about racism. He was marching on stage and confronting the school and saying, I have been called a kafir. My friends have been called a kafir. And he was saying this at a school with these kinds of friendships. So confronting these issues, finding ways of confronting them, means that although racism is here to stay, in fact, it means that the work has to be done, even increasingly so now, because we realize that this is a problem that is here with us to stay. The possibility always exists that we can connect across the color line, but the importance is facing the reality of the shame, of the embarrassment, of the privilege, and being able to say, I am what I am because of my history that dates back to my ancestors, and facing that reality, and then finding a way to connect with the other.
Yeah, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. And the nice thing about black majority spaces is that it's okay. If I was back at Red College, I'd have to be a little bit smoother in how I end the conversation as a moderator. I want to give you 1 minute, Loveland, and I want you to respond to Katz. I fully hear you and totally agree with you. There isn't a but coming. Just an and, Boomer, about the possibility of cross-racial friendship. My own friend, Sisonke Nzimang, writes beautifully in her Ruth First paper about the conditions under which the ethical ideal as conceived by Aristotle of genuine friendship can happen between black and white South Africans. And the key premise of her analysis is that, and I really think this is critical, and some whites get it, like Karen Moore, my friend who's an excellent journalist. We must be careful of friendship where it is about the appearance of a post-racial relationship between black and white people, and friendship that is premised on all the other things we didn't have time to talk about today because we can't talk about everything today, such as the material inequities, and such as, which speaks to Kat's question that I want Loveland to address, who feels at home in that school? For a black boy, a black girl, to protest at a school and have hair gate takes enormous amounts of risk because you never feel at home. Our cousins who didn't have the chance to go to Model C and private schools, like some of us did, think that we only had it good in those schools, but actually we never fitted in. We were always experiencing double consciousness. So when we're asking the black kid and the white kid to become friends, there's the appearance of a moral burden that is equally shared there, a political burden, but it is not the case because our schools, where we spend so many man-hours of our lives and institutionally in their cultures and norms, privilege the white body. And we don't interrogate what those schools do. And I was unsurprised recently when a bunch of headmasters wanted me to MC an event. And I actually said, no, I don't want to MC the event because when you're a moderator, you have to hold back a little bit. You can't gratuitously, as I'm doing now, insert yourself into the narrative. But I'm also an author. I'm also a grace commentator. I've written 3 books. And so I said to them, I won't MC the event, but can I come and talk to you about how to decolonize the patriarchal and the racist and the violent norms that are engendered, particularly in our single-sex male schools in this country, and I'll paint you a productive program of action for how to get away from that to a different set of cultural norms. No thanks. And that's what I want Lovell to address, because this is the kind of work that you are trying to do now with your new adventure.
So just very quickly, because I know we've run out of time, the work that I do is in fact mostly focused on schools and faith communities. Why? Thank you. Let's talk about the Apartheid Museum's mics that switch us off. It's very ironic. Okay. Right. So I work with schools and address a lot of these questions around race, right? And gender and, but most of it is focused on race. And I think to answer your question about, why is it, what's the point of doing all this work if even black learners there, aren't pitching up, aren't showing up? The first thing is to say that there's a very high cost. It's so emotionally, financially, and etc. expensive to show up as a black person in a space that was not designed for you. And so what is necessary then is for there to be structural change in schools especially to make sure that everybody and anybody can show up. And I'll tell you where it starts. It starts with the curriculum as an example, right? So if the only role models that you have as inventors, as creators of things, as sportsmen, as this, that, and the other, if the only role models that children have, right, are white, what do you think is going to happen? They associate in their minds that whiteness is this specific character or this specific position in society. And so a lot of what I recommend to schools is to say, let's actually, in the HSS curriculum, in the LO curriculum, let's look at black inventors. Black people invented so many things that white people claimed were theirs, right? So let's look at black inventors. Let's teach black children that black people made stuff. Black people came up with new ideas. That is such a powerful message to communicate to children without having to say anything about race. You're just saying this person did this. It starts with having black teachers, and then it starts with doing the hard work that needs to happen with parents. I have been in schools where, I kid you not, prep schools, I'm talking like creche level, where a 4 or 5-year-old said to another black child, I don't want you at my party because your skin looks like poo. How does a 4 or 5-year-old understand that black skin should be associated with shit, right? It speaks to what they're being taught at home. It's about how you're treating your domestic worker. It's about what you're watching on TV. It's about the conversations Uncle Sam can have at the dining table. So there's work to be done across the spectrum. So I'll talk to you afterwards. Schools, I'm there.
Firstly, I want to thank you. This is difficult conversation for being honest, sitting through and with discomfort. Sometimes the psychologist knows better than me. We want to bypass the psychology instead of going through it. Secondly, the poo we have to deal with as a country runs so deep. And even the rules of engagement have to be challenged.
Yes.
And the reason why the man at the back, the hand that stirred in me that reaction, is that I'm the first one to articulate my discomfort with even rules of engagement that privilege certain kinds of hegemonies in our society. And that is also why I have won a battle with Wayne. The rest of the year I'm not moderating. I may be on some panels, but I don't want that. And I know it because these things are so complicated that even the way in which we speak and who makes up the rules and how they play out in discourse tend to reinforce certain kinds of power structures. So thank you for your generosity. And first and foremost, please give yourself a round of applause. And then secondly, I think self-evidently they were every bit as brilliant as I told you they'd be. I mean, please thank them. And then these battles are complicated. Not even in the Apartheid Museum is it necessarily a safe space for a black body. So I can say that my cousin, who's photographing me on sales an employee here, and Wade is the deputy director. Someone said on Twitter this morning, you see, can we talk about how problematic the Apartheid Museum is? There's lots to be said about what's problematic about this museum. Inside of it, while we are trying to dismantle whiteness, we are still as black people employees. That's why we have tough questions to ask about how do we navigate in the meantime while we wait for ourselves to have land and assets and wealth, right? And within that context, the real person behind this is not me. I was brought on to be a partner with them, is this wonderful black woman, Wady Abrams, and I want to invite her to just come and give us final thanks.
Thanks, Cecilia. I'd like to firstly thank our panelists. It was an absolutely phenomenal dialogue that we had, and I can assure you we had many. And for me, this was, it felt good to talk about these things openly. And I'm sure the audience feels the same way as well. I want to thank you, Eusebius, for always being with us, with our panelists. I'd like to thank all of you for coming this afternoon. Earlier on, just before we started with the housekeeping for the internet, oh my God, all these people are RSVPing. It's only 20 people here. Thank you for coming on a public holiday and not staying at home and crying. I want to thank and ask the three educators who are continuously bringing learners on public holidays.
Of colonialism.
Nice and intimate enough for you. I think that there might be a little bit of agitation because not all of us got our questions there and so forth. But perhaps that's a good thing to be agitated when you leave here and it makes you then start to self-reflect and to think for yourself to come up with your own ways of managing this oppression on our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sense